All right, welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, Spotify as well. If you're on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. We do not have a paywall. And check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We always mention our fantasy and betting partners. For fantasy, go to prizepicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Play NBA, NHL, MLB, MMA, MLS. It's all there at Prize Picks. Go to use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Just go up or down on various props. You can play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players together. You can combine different sports. Go to Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. And also Better Edge. Go to betteredge.com. At betteredge.com, use the code 5RSN. There it is, betteredge.com. Use the code 5RSN. You get $20 to play when you use that code. This is peer-to-peer legal sports betting. Legal with an L, not with an I. Legal. And you can do this against your friends there or others that are on the product. And again, because you're betting against others there, you can find the line you want, and it is legal because you're not betting against the book. So go to betteredge.com, use the code 5RSN, and also Prize Picks, use the code 5, F-I-V-E, at prizepicks.com, Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store. All right, let's get to it. Oh, well, that's not yet. And now today's episode.
Down the Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. We got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. Alex Toledo. Follow him at Tropical Blanket. Brady will be back over the weekend. We'll have coverage of the Mavericks at the Heat, two struggling teams right now. Of course, I wouldn't say the Heat are chasing a playoff spot right now. They're kind of, I don't know, stepping backwards and hoping somebody falls back over them. That's pretty much where we're at right now. We did sort of a venting episode. Make sure you check that out. For those of you who are still listening to us, we do still want to do some basketball stuff, some things that are on the floor, because there are games left. Like, I know there are some on Twitter who don't want us to talk about any of this. They've totally thrown in the towel on all of this, and all they care about is, can we get one ping pong ball to go get Wemby in the draft or Scoot? That's kind of where we're at right now. 5 games left. I think it's a little bit late for the Heat to pivot to tanking. Sort of feels like they're all in on trying to make the playoffs right now, at least organizationally, even if it doesn't seem like it with the product we've been seeing on the floor. 3 straight losses to the Nets, Toronto, and the Knicks with the playoffs at stake. But we are going to talk about some rotation stuff and kind of what can be done in desperation mode right now by Eric Spoelstra to get this team going. And so, Alex, I'm going to go to you first on this. There's one thing that has to happen. Kevin Love has to come out of the starting lineup. I saw the what was it? Simon, our guy Simon Smith. He goes by both on Twitter. I'm not sure which is. We've had him on the podcast before. He went on and found a stat that on open threes with the Heat, Kevin Love is 3 of 23? Is that correct? Something along those lines, something like 12%, 13%. We've talked about how the defense, you talked about this a lot on the episode we did last week, how the defense system has totally changed to accommodate Kevin Love. They've gotten less aggressive. They have to cover him in the starting lineup. Greg found it. It's 4 of 33. 4 of 33. 4 of 33. 12%. 12%. There are independent candidates who have a better shot at being elected president in the fall than Kevin Love does of making a three. So to me, that has to change now. Like and my suggestion is start Highsmith, because I think you do want to keep Caleb in his current role. And at least with Highsmith, you know what you're getting. Okay. He can make an open three. He has, he's had some games where he's made more than one, but he's going to defend his ass off. Bam seems to play better next to that style of player. He's a little bit more of a PJ Tucker-like player. The very first thing I would do is insert Highsmith for Love and pull Love from the rotation. Am I wrong?
That's a really interesting one. I thought you were just going to say throw Caleb back in the starting lineup, which is probably where I would go and what I said the other night, before this losing streak. I think, it's just not working out. Like, you're not getting the results you wanted, and you could kind of try to stay steady and hope that Love's threes are just going to fall in, which I understand why you could think that. Like, I think he is a better shooter than what he's shown. And even last night, not that there was very many good things. There was a couple of times early on where he actually tried to do something off the catch and use his physicality on a smaller guy inside. And we were all like reacting on playback. By the way, playback.tv/5 on the floor. Check us out there for like every game at this point and future NBA content once the Heat are eliminated.
They're winning the title, Alex.
Yeah, of course. Of course. That's what we have to say. But no, I think like besides that, like he's just not giving you the offensive output you wanted. He's not shooting well. The team, as a result, like even if there's been some incremental offensive improvement, it's not very much at all. Like and Wes Goldberg tweeted today the updated stats of where they're at post All-Star break. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I believe it was 26 in defensive rating, 22nd offensive rating, 25th in net rating since the All-Star break. So yeah, it's not working on either side. It's not all on Kevin Love. We've talked about it plenty, how the team overall is not doing what they're supposed to, the lack of effort, the lack of execution on both ends, just being, sloppy play, lethargic play overall. All of that has contributed to this. So yes, like taking Kevin Love out of the lineup, the starting lineup is not going to fix everything, but like you still have to do what you can do for whatever is left of the season, even if it's not much. Like we saw that with Caleb starting, it just worked a lot better than what they're doing right now. And so I would go back to Caleb as a starter, even though I kind of like the Highsmith idea, kind of, what you said, to keep Caleb back on the bench. I think he's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more optimized coming off the bench as an energy wing, energy four, whatever you want to call him. But I think I just bring Highsmith off the bench, get Caleb back in the starting lineup, just because I already feel so good about that fit with the starters. And I think going into the playoffs, you got to go with your best guys. And instead of Love out there, and this is where I'm going to go, not only am I saying get Kevin Love out of the starting lineup, I might say get him out of the rotation altogether. I'm not there all the way, but if you're going to, for a guy like Duncan, or just to get max for a minute, something like that, like for another quote-unquote one-way player who you might trust a little bit more on defense, incredibly enough, in a guy like Duncan, Duncan might just give you better shooting. And honestly, I would probably bet he's going to give you better shooting. Like he's going to also help the ball movement. Like we already know that teams are still going to panic and send a second guy, and maybe that can help juice the offense a little bit. That's not going to save anything, right? But like I said on last night's show, they should not be above that. Like the guy is going to help you out with movement. We know some of the comfy sets that they like to run with it, and I think you could do some stuff with that. So I say throw in Duncan, throw in Highsmith into the bench rotation. I don't know exactly how you do this, and I say you get rid of Depot, and and possibly get rid of Kevin Love, possibly.
That you see, you're stealing my take, because I was going to say completely remove Victor Oladipo. The 3-point shooting, like, it's egregious at this point.
And the decision making is worse, man. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, but his decision to shoot as many threes as he shoots, as his percent of total field goals, that's a problem in itself. No Depot, no Kevin Love. And truthfully, like even lately, Gabe has been really inconsistent as a shooter. I don't think they can get away with obviously not playing him. But for me, like I think they should play Duncan the rest of the season. Cody Zeller, like continue to give him an opportunity. Let's see what he can do. Maybe he'll stick for next season as a backup player. Caleb Martin, I agree that putting him in the starting lineup, he's finally back in his role. Like, can we just let him sink into that role? But I understand the pull. I feel like they must have promised Kevin Love that starting spot, because I bet they don't change the starting lineup. But I would say no Oladipo is as important as no Kevin Love if we're taking guys out of the rotation.
Well, they have to give up on certain experiments at this stage. The Oladipo experiment did not work this year. There were moments where it looked like it would, but he had 2 setbacks, and every time he came back from the setbacks, not only did he seem less explosive, but again, the decision-making got worse. It's almost like he just realized he couldn't explode anymore, and so teams were leaving him open for the 3, and so he was making the decision to repeatedly take the 3. I mean, he's averaging, since the All-Star break, he's averaging almost 5 3-point attempts per game that he plays. And there's just, I mean, when he's averaging 5 3-point attempts and 3 2-point attempts. That has to be reversed. It's just that can't happen. So I'm with you. I think that he and Kevin Love needs to go also. I mean, Barry had this thing today, and all know I love Barry, but Barry was talking about how on Twitter about how this team hasn't reached expectations because of all the former All-Stars they have. I'm sorry, we cannot look at Victor Oladipo, Kevin Love, and Kyle Lowry as former All-Stars at this
Hell
stage,
no.
as All-Stars. I mean, none of them are close to what they were at their All-Star levels. They've got two guys who can still play at an All-Star level and a third who can get there at times in Hero, and that's who they have. I mean, we can't talk about – I mean, that would be like saying – someone said on Twitter, that'd be like signing Dwight Howard and saying, well, they got another former All-Star on their roster. I mean, for that matter, bring Zoe back.
Boogie, Melo. Yeah, just go all in with the former All-Stars.
Right. So, I mean, these are not – I mean, they're at this stage, they're shells of what they were, and the reality is I don't know that Kevin Love's going to be in the league next year. I don't know if Oladipo didn't have the contract that he has with Miami with the player option. I don't know where he would be next year, or certainly what price he would be at. And honestly, I mean, Kyle Lowry at this stage is a 15 to 20 minute a game player at $6 to $8 million in terms of what he's actually providing. It's just that the Heat are paying him close to 30 next year, or they would be if they hold on to him. So you can't look at it that way. Here's what I would say rotation wise. Okay. And then we'll get into more stuff on the other side of this. I'd start Highsmith, leave Martin where he's at. It's similar to what Spoelstra talks about with keeping the bench rotation intact. I think you found something there with Caleb going back to the bench. Caleb has been their fourth best player this year, and you can argue has been their second most consistent player, honestly. So to me, wherever Caleb's comfortable and you're getting the most out of it, I think that's the way to go. I would start, I leave Gabe as a starter for now. Again, minutes determine, Gabe versus Lowry based on who's going better. I would take Love out of the rotation entirely. Zeller's your backup big. You bring in Caleb off the bench with Strus and Robinson. You try to stagger them as much as possible, and Lowry. And you at least, because here's my thing, okay? If you're going to play guys who are weaker defensively, you better be getting something to improve your spacing on offense. You better be. So Love is not doing that. So at least Duncan, there's an opportunity to do that. And Strus, you kind of want to see if he has one of those nights like he had the other night, before everything went bad, in the, what was it? The Toronto game, right? So I would play those two guys, not necessarily guarantee their minutes, but get Love out of the rotation and get Oladipo out of the rotation at this stage. Insert Highsmith into the rotation. That's the way that I would play it. I mean, I don't think it makes them a contender.
Love is a backup 5, so they got to choose between him or Zeller. I think that's the other
Zeller.
I do have to say, Scoot looks like a really good lead guard if they could end up, that the basketball karma rains down on the Heat for not being a tanking team if they somehow slip into the lottery and then jump up into that top 3, top 4, whatever it is that you can jump up to. Anyway, I'm just speaking it into existence.
That would be awesome for us, by the way. That would be amazing
that's what
for us.
We need, right? Because
us as 5 on the floor, not as like.
Could you imagine if they traded like the number 2 pick in the draft for Bradley Beal?
Everybody would be so conflicted. Like, do we celebrate? Do we boo? We got a star, but you traded a future star. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this fan base still hasn't gotten over the loss of Bull, who they never intended to actually keep, right? Or Marcus Thornton, or how many
probably wouldn't have drafted him. Oh, Bojan. They drafted Bojan.
Yeah. I mean, look, or I'll say this: I'd rather have that happen than continue to do these deck chairs on the Titanic episodes like we've chosen tonight. All right, we're going to look ahead though to the Dallas game when we come back. I do want to mention another sponsor here, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's our friend Mark Brown. You can go to markbrownpa.com. That's markbrownpa.com. We mention all the time, if you need an estate planner, you go to him. But also, he's a real estate attorney. He lives in this market. I was a huge Miami Heat fan. He's based over on Cypress Creek, just north of Andrews. And he can handle your entire real estate transaction. Anything that comes up, Mark can handle it. I can tell you he handled 2 of my closings for me. He also did my estate plan. I trust him completely, and you will too as soon as you work with him. And he'll go through all the details with you. He's very thorough about this kind of stuff. Again, he can handle your real estate transaction. He can act as a seller representative, contract review, contract preparation. I'm reaching out to him on something with him just this week. Escrow disputes, breach of contract, bankruptcy, all of it. Mark Brown is the guy to go to. So go to Mark Brown. That's with a C. You can find his website there. He's also runs All Florida Title Company. MarkBrownPA.com, 954-566-5678. That's 954-566-5678. Again, that's MarkBrownPA.com. All right, the Dallas Mavericks. We're recording this episode, just full disclosure, on Thursday night. I don't know. Does Dallas play before they go to Miami? Do they have a game? They've been an utter disaster. When Kyrie Irving is calling you a cluster bleep. No, they do not. Okay, so they're going to come in here. They are in that scrum in the Western Conference that we thought they might move up as far as 4, and they could slip all the way to 11 permanently, 11, 12, or 13 and be out of the playoffs. You've seen the Pelicans make a bit of a surge. Yeah, I mean, they just haven't been very good. I mean, since Luka and Irving were put together, there's this perception that you need to put Luka with another ball handler there because it worked with Brunson, but it has not worked with Kyrie. They gutted their role guys to make the trade because they traded Dorian Finney-Smith and others. They don't seem to have any interior presence whatsoever. They got Christian Wood in there. Jason Kidd doesn't like to play him. I follow a lot of Dallas fans who are frustrated with Kidd. We talk about the Heat being a disaster. The Heat are at least going to make the playoffs. I mean, a play-in. We don't know that Dallas is right now. And yet, I don't have any confidence, Alex, in Miami to beat this team because Luka or Kyrie could go for 40 and the Heat just can't compete with that kind of firepower. And somebody we've never heard of is going to torch them. So how do they approach this game?
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. And as Leif mentions in the chat, the Mavericks are 3-7 in their last 10 games. So, and yeah, like they haven't been fully healthy for all of it, but I don't have the record in front of me, but somebody actually was talking about it today. Their record, even with the both of them playing, it's still bad. Like they just have not figured things out. Like you said, they're just kind of very soft on defense. The offense is not exactly what they wanted it to be. I think consistently, they're kind of a mess right now in similar ways to the Heat, except not so similar at the same time because what you can get from Luka and Kyrie as consistent scorers. And I feel like, maybe we could have said that before about Jimmy Bam and Tyler, but as of late, that hasn't necessarily been the case. And yeah, you got to be fair to Jimmy last night, had a very, very bad game for his standards, was obviously coming back from some neck soreness. So hopefully, it's just that. And maybe that's why he wasn't so physical. His neck was just a little stiff and he comes back feeling fine. And it's not a thing that holds over. But this is an extremely, extremely important game for the Mavericks. Like they're a full game behind the play-in, and a full game is not a lot, but it's a lot when there's only like 5 games left in the season. You also need the Thunder, whoever it is that's right above them, to lose in that same period. So I think they're going to come out full force, sense of urgency. The Mavericks are, because it's a must win for them. And even if you can kind of say that for the Heat, like you said, they're going to be in the play-in regardless. They're most likely still going to remain the 7th seed. Knock on wood, because it's not possible, I think, for them to go lower. But man, I think you got to come out if you're the Heat and not mess around. I don't know. Like it's hard to say more than that because Luka and Kyrie can just do so much to you, so much damage to you so quickly. And even with that defense being soft, things are not going to be easy for the Heat on the offensive end ever. So yeah, like I think it's going to be a really tough matchup. Even if the Mavs have been a mess, I want to see the Heat come out defense first. I want to see them get back to their identity and sustain that. It's just it feels very hopeful and naive of me to say that at this point.
It's crazy though, because like they actually are the one team that lately it's gone worse for them than it's gone for Miami. I mean, I'm looking at this quote from the other night. Do you know Kyrie Irving called it a cluster bleep? Yeah. Like in the like essentially like that's what it's felt like because he had to go to a new environment. And he's like talking about things like the big question is like, what does our future look like? Why did this team trade for me? He's asking very existential questions in the midst of them trying to make the playoffs. He always does, though. I mean, so it's just like like if there's any
you get to doing that once you drop 2 back-to-back important games versus the Charlotte Hornets
Why is the universe working against us? That's where we're at with Kyrie. This is what Heat fans wanted, by the way. Although I guess he would have helped the offense, but I mean, this is where they're at. They're behind OKC. I mean, can we put that into some perspective? OKC literally, I mean, went into this year. First thing, they lost their first round pick right before the year started, and they are playing for lottery balls. Like they are absolute. I mean, Shea has been unbelievable, and Giddey has really come on this year. But they are playing with all these draft picks. Like they have no intention of trying to win this year, and they're ahead of Dallas. And yet I'll ask this question because we talk about lineup changes, and that's how we started all this tonight. And we thank our sponsors, markbrownpa.com, Prize Picks, and Better Edge, is who the hell is going to guard Luka? Jimmy? This is another reason why you got to start Haywood Highsmith. Like, if you're going to make a change now and put another defender in the starting lineup, right? Like, how are you going to guard Gabe will guard Kyrie, right? Like, provided he starts. If Caleb started, he would guard Kyrie. But otherwise, who is going to guard Luka? Jimmy? I'll keep repeating.
It doesn't matter because they're going to send two every time that he inevitably involves Love in an action. So it's never going to be one guy on Jimmy or Kyrie because they're just going to send two every time.
Well, what do you know? Another situation where they're missing PJ Tucker.
Oh, that's a good way to end. I'm sorry, you can't start Kevin Love on Saturday, and yet they will. This is reaching Bibby-esque proportions.
Not quite. Not yet. I mean, the stakes just aren't nearly as high.
He's 4 for 33 on open threes. This reminds me of when they signed Bibby and Mike Bibby's first presser that he had with us or on the side of practice, where he said, I'm a little worried about how many open shots I'm going to get playing with Dwayne and LeBron and
he got
Chris.
A standing O.
Because I don't like taking so many open shots. Kevin Love is 4 for 33 on open threes. Alex, you would make more than 4 for 33. Now, I'm not going to say myself. We're going to have the Kevin Love challenge. We're going to put you out there, and you got to make more than 4 for 33 completely open. We'll steal a ball after practice.
It's got to be on the actual arena, and that's just me trying to sneak some shooting on the Heat court, of course. Look, man, it's different because obviously it's not an NBA game, but I promise you I can shoot. I can make 4 out of 33 threes on a wide open NBA court. Just me there. That doesn't, of course. I'm 5'10".
I'm not making the same claim for myself, but we are clipping this. So we're going to go this. Alex, I can make more than 4 for 30.
Guaranteed. And I'm on the injury report. I can guarantee I'll still make 4. But look, man, it's not in the course of an NBA game. I'm not going to act like it's the same thing. It's obviously not. I don't know what else to say about Kevin Love, man. Like he looks worse than you thought he'd look. The advanced stats will tell you he hasn't been as negative as he was for Cleveland this season. Like it hasn't been quite as bad. So maybe there's some upside and just like, hey, he starts hitting some shots, all lineups don't look quite as bad, and you could just shorten the stints and make him feel good about his standing or whatever. If you really promise him that starting lineup, you just shorten that stint. Instead of him playing the first 6 or 7 minutes, he plays the first 3 minutes. 3 or 4 minutes at most. But other than that, like I really do think he's best served as a backup 5 for Jimmy to have a spaced out lineup, and that has really shown itself in those lineups' offensive rating. So if they're not going to go to that, and it's just Zeller, I don't know where he fits, and that's why I was kind of talking before as far as the Highsmith and Duncan stuff. I think it's kind of they're pretty good replacements for the guys coming out because you're replacing Kevin Love's shooting and spacing for Duncan and his movement shooting, which is probably going to be better served in an offense that badly needs the movement and badly needs the shooting. And also he's on a long-term contract, whereas Kevin Love isn't. So you need him to shoot well. Then, what you lose in Depot's defense, which he's still pretty good at, despite the decline with all the setbacks, you get in Highsmith, and you need his size more than what you need from Depot as far as like the type of build you need out there. I think Highsmith to guard the extra wing, to keep Jimmy off the best player, to have a guy to take pressure off Bam and just not have to cover up every single action on the floor. I think it just makes a lot of sense. And I think Spo likes Highsmith. So, you get the offense-defense guys. And I really have turned into everything I hated. And I mentioned this on last night's pod as far as like becoming the guy who clamors for all the guys who are not currently in the rotation to come in the rotation and fix everything, because they're not going to fix everything. But I think at this point, you got to try these things and see what works, because the playoffs are almost here.
Well, Yurt thinks he can fix everything. I promise you.
Well, I left him off for a reason.
I'm just saying. I mean, the article was with Ira's article today, I think, where we never got to see the two big lineup. And we saw it for one preseason game.
Oh
Thank you, Spo.
Just stop.
It kind of felt like Spo lost a bet when he went to it, because you know that couldn't have been his idea. Like that, that's one of those like Pat's passing a note. Like try this.
All right, Pat, I'll give it a shot.
Try this. Two bigs, and why not? Let's bring Charles Oakley out of retirement to play the 3. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where this was headed. Anyway, we hope we've solved the Heat's problems. We know we haven't, but again, we'll be at the game on Saturday. Also, we'll do a full playback, and of course, Canes and FAU. We're running tournaments on Better Edge all week. Would that be something if the Heat miss the playoffs and the Canes and FAU are in the NCAA final?
I hate this timeline.
Go Canes.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.